Hi, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm going to be presenting another large block. It's 18.5 inches and it is called Rolling Squares, and here it is. Great block. Love this block. It is a little bit trickier to put together than some of the other larger blocks I've done recently. So the video is a little bit longer, but it's worth it. I mean, I think that looks really great. That's a fun block to do. This is also the 9th block, or the September block, for my 2021 Stars of the Prairie mystery quilt. This is a free mystery quilt that I do one every year, and I present a new block each month. And this is number 9. So if you're here for the mystery quilt, go ahead and watch the tutorial, and then at the very end I tell you how many blocks we need of this. But if you're here just to make the block, it's, like I said, it's a big, bold 18.5 inch block, great for a pillow or something like that. Just stay tuned for the tutorial. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers. Thank you so much. And I am on social media at Create with Claudia. If you are interested in my other work or the quilt along, head over to my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. I do all kinds of quilt patterns, tutorials, tips, that sort of thing. But you can also find them over here on YouTube. I always do a companion video with all of my articles. So thanks so much for watching and enjoy the video. So here is the top view of the Rolling Squares quilt block. This is that nice big 18.5 inch block we're doing, and we're going to get started. So this is what it looks like, and I'm going to try and refer back to this so you know what fabrics I'm talking about. First off, you're going to need 4 different fabrics. And I'm going to tell you first off how much you need of each one. So from the background fabric, and the background fabric is going to equate to this purple, this white with the purple flowers. From the background fabric, you need 1/4 yard. From fabric A, which equates to these sort of blue purple, all these little triangles in here all the way around, this dark, I think it's the darkest purple in here. We're going to be using this sort of plum purple, okay? And for that, you need a fat 1/4. There's another piece to it. From fabric B, which in this case I'm using this sort of soft yellow and orange, and fabric B equates to this purple here, this sort of plum purple. Fabric B, you need a fat 1/4. And then last but not least is fabric C, which is that center, that big bold center. That's that sort of medium purple, a periwinkle. That is this orange, and that you need a 6.5 inch square. So that's how much fabric you need to make this big block. And now I'm going to tell you how much we need to cut of each fabric. So starting with the background fabric, you need 4 rectangles cut 6.5 inches by 3.5 inches. You need 6 squares cut 3 7/8 inches, 3 7/8 inches, and we're going to cut those on the diagonal. From fabric A, which is this purple, this plum purple, you need 2 squares cut 3 7/8 inches, and those will be cut on the diagonal as well. So 3 7/8 inches, you need 2 squares of that. And then you need 8 squares that are cut 3.5 inches, and on these you're going to mark them all on the you're going to mark a diagonal line on the back. So 8 squares cut 3.5 inches. From fabric B, you need 4 squares, and they will be cut 4 3/4 inches. So 4 squares cut 4 3/4 inches, and then 4 rectangles cut 6.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So 4 of those. Move those over here next to this one. And then last but not least, I said before, is 1 square from fabric C cut 6.5 inches square. So there's your cutting, lots of pieces, and then you're going to cut some of them on the diagonal, and I'll show you again how we go through that. So let's get started. The first part we're going to make is this corner square right here. Okay? Okay, so we're going to start by cutting all those squares that we needed to on the diagonal. And if you recall, we needed to cut the background fabric squares that were cut 3 7/8 inches. We're going to cut those one time on the diagonal. And let me show you how to do that. Very easy to do. Now, I will say with this block, you want to maintain a real scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you got to watch it. There's not a lot of wiggle room. A lot of times you'll know in my blocks, that, and especially when there are a lot of half square triangles, I have a lot of wiggle room and you get to trim them down. With this one, there really isn't that much, so you got to really watch that seam allowance and straight sewing. So we're going to cut that in half, and you want to cut all of those squares, all of those background squares that were 3 7/8, you want to cut all of those on the diagonal. And then you're going to do the same with your fabric A, and that was this purple. And those are only cut on the diagonal, the ones that are 3 7/8 inches square. Okay. Rotary cutter, I'll always keep that closed when you're not using it. There we go. So I would do that with the rest of those squares. I'm not going to do that right now. But you're going to need one of the triangles from the fabric A. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right fabric. Yeah, one of the triangles from fabric A. You're going to need this square from fabric B. And then you're going to need 3 of those triangles that we made with the background fabric. Let me go get one more. There we go. So to put together this corner square, let me move this out of the way. To put together this corner square that we're doing right here, let me see, maybe I'll move this over a little bit. There we go. We're just going to do that square right here. This part right here. First thing you need to do is you take those triangles. You're going to do the opposite sides first. So, whoops. So this side to this one, this side to this side. The way to center, this is a little trick I have, is I would fold this in half. I'd fold all 3 pieces in half and then match up that fold. And that gives me a good center point for all those pieces. That's just, you want to make sure that everything's nice and even. Like I said, there's not a lot of wiggle room in this block. So once it's done and it's all squared up, it should measure 6.5 inches square. So I'm going to take this back and I'm going to sew those 2 sides, and then we're going to press those open. Okay, so here they are. They're sewn down each side. One thing I forgot to mention is you want to put, when you're sewing these together, put the right sides of the fabrics together, so the right side together. And that way when you flip them over, the fabric's in the right way. But I'm going to go press these really quickly and then add the other 2 sides. All right, doesn't matter which side, just going to put those on now. And I'm going to add those and then press it, and then when I come back I'll show you we may or may not need to trim it down. Alright, so here's that corner unit in that block. It's all ready to go. I'm going to set this aside. The one thing I will do is I'll probably cut off these dog ears. I think this measures, it might be, let's see, get your square ruler out. I love these square rulers. They are so helpful when you're doing blocks like this. Square blocks. Let's see. Yeah, it just is about 6.5. I will keep that. Like I said, very scant 1/4 inch on this one. I may, if it's a 1/4 inch, it's going to be a little too small. So I'm just going to cut those little dog ears off. Might be easier to use my rotary cutter without putting my finger there. That would have been good. Let's try this again. Let's see. I just want to get rid of those. Any little bulk you want to get rid of. And last side. All right. So there we go. So you should have 4 of these when you're done, 1 for each corner. And then we're going to start, now we're going to do this center outside unit, and I'll show you that in a second. Let me just get rid of those dog ears. So the next part we're going to be doing is this section right, let me see if you can see it, right in here. Just only this part right here. We'll do that. That's easy. This is just sewing that on. But first we're going to do this. It's like a flying geese unit, 1 unit right there. So for the flying geese unit, you're going to need the following. You're going to need the 4 rectangles of the background fabric that were cut 3.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And then you're going to need these squares of fabric A, this purple that has string all over it, this purple that was cut 3.5 inches square. On the back of every single one of those squares that were 3.5 inches of fabric A, I drew a diagonal line. Let me see if I can get a nice, I drew a dark one on this one just so you could see it better. I wouldn't normally draw with pencil, and I wouldn't normally draw that darkly, but for the camera, that's what I did. So for each flying geese unit, and you're going to need 4 of them for this block, you need 2 of those squares and 1 of the rectangles, and that's of the background fabric. And then what we're going to do, and this is very easy, and again, we got to watch our sewing on this one. Right sides facing, you want to line this up in that one end, either like so. So you can't see the purple, right sides facing. And you are going to sew along that drawn line. However, just a suggestion, because what you're going to do once that you've sewn on that drawn line is you're going to cut away this part of the block, and then you're going to fold this over and press it so you have like a flying goose. I would not sew directly on that line. I would sew to the outside just a hair. I mean, we're talking just outside of that line. That's going to give you just a little bit of wiggle room and make sure that this unit is the right size. So again, I would sew right to the outside, towards that outside corner of that drawn line. And I'm going to do that and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I have sewn, let me get my pencil so you can see it. There's my drawn line, and again, just a hair to the outside is my stitching. So next thing you're going to do, well, you're going to cut away those threads. Get rid of those. You're going to go ahead and you're going to, I wouldn't cut that away quite yet. What I would do is press that back, and then we're going to add the other one on the other side. And I would actually press that with the machine. I'm going to finger press it right now. Making sure that that your line is pointing the right way. Do it before you sew, just test it, maybe just fold it back. There you go, that's the right way, that's what we want to get. And again, sew just to the outside of that line. Okay, so there we have it. And you just fold that back, and I would take this over to the pressing. I'm just going to make sure it's the right side before. I always just like to make sure before I cut everything. And this, when this is done, should measure 3.5 by 6.5. And it looks good. I will take it. So now you want to cut carefully back. That's a lot of bulk. You want to get rid of that. And I would just, let's see, just get rid of that. I would just use my scissors here. The one thing you'll run into is your seam up here. You sew over, but it's not a big deal. Fold that over. All right, and then we can cut this one. You can use your rotary cutter if you want. Save those, maybe you make some half square triangles or throw them out, whichever. Let me go press this really quickly and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so there it is. There's your flying goose unit or flying geese unit. I never know if I should do that plural or not. Anyway, the next thing you need to do, let me pull over that tester block so you can see my example. Is you want to get this whole square right here. Let's see, maybe you can see that like so. Just this whole part right here. So, just mimicking that, you're going to take this, sew it like that, and then sew those together. Now this is a little bit long. No, it's good. We're good. Okay, looked like might be a little bit long. Right sides together. You want to do it so that arrow that point is pointing towards the inside. Making sure you have a nice scant 1/4 inch seam, and then that, when it's done, should measure 6.5 inches square. And then we're ready to assemble this block once you've done all 4 of them, because you're going to need 4 for this block. Okay, so here it is. Let me fold it open. There you go. In a perfect world, this is going to measure 6.5 inches square. You should have, again, four of these for your quilt, for your block. I'm going to go finish those, and when I come back, we will lay this block out and finish it up. Alrighty. So now I'm finally finished with all these pieces. This, of all the blocks, if you are quilting along with us on the mystery quilt, this is the trickiest of the bunch. But so now you're going to put your center square down, excuse me, and then you're just going to start building around. A lot of threads on here, let's see. So then, like so. See. One more to go. There we go. Yowza. Love, love, love this block. Like that I put the purple out there. Sometimes, you know, you're not quite sure it's going to turn out until you sew it all together or place it all together. But I love the way this purple pops here. So now what you're going to do is, this is just like regular sewing of a quilt block. You're just going to sew this row together, this row together, this row together, and then sew the rows, the finished rows together. And you'll have one big 18.5-inch block. But I'm going to go ahead first and sew those rows together, and so you'll see how that looks. Alright, so here it is, and we are almost ready to sew this together. Here are the different rows sewn together, and now we're just going to piece those rows together, and we will be done with this block. Alrighty, so here's my whopper of a block called Rolling Squares. Love the way it turned out. It is not an easy block to make, I will say that, and but it is worth it. I think it's a really pretty block, really pretty scrap quilt. Wouldn't that make a pretty scrap quilt? So if you're here because of the mystery quilt, stick around and I'll let you know how many of these we need to make. So if you stuck around, that means that you are here as part of the mystery quilt. This is a free mystery quilt. If you stuck around and you aren't part of aren't joining in, it is a free mystery quilt. We do a new block every month. This is September's block. And the others are all available on my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. There's also a link in the description of this video, which might help you out too. So this is the block we did this month. We only do one of them, and I think if you have been around, you'll know that the rest of the months we only do one of them as well. So that's it for this month. We'll see you next month. Okay, I'm back. Here it is, the finished rolling squares quilt block. Love, love, love this block. I'm not sure, this might be up here with one of my top 2 favorites in my mystery quilt. If you stuck around for the mystery quilt, you saw the directions for that. This is the 9th block in it if you're interested in that, or if you want to make a pillow or a wall hanging. It's just a fun block to do. A little bit trickier, but that's okay. It's a good one. I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers. I really do appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much. I am on social media at Create with Claudia. And again, if you have any questions or are interested in the quilt along or any of the other work I do, head over to my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Have a great day.